If you've left a high control religion or a high control group or even an abusive relationship, you've come to the right place. My name's Mark Jones. I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witness and I'm now a psychologist. And my job is deprogramming cult members, is helping those who've been under undue influence or high control environments and helping them to transition into the real world and adapt and recover. And this session that we're starting with is probably one of the most important ones. In fact, if you're ever going to listen to any more of my videos, this is the one I want you to remember beyond anything else. And it's this: you are not broken. So you've left a high control religion or a high control environment, maybe an abusive partner. You're probably feeling a mix of emotions right now. For me, I initially felt elated, like a great weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But at the same time, I was confused and fearful, a little guilty, a little fearful about the future. Now, these reactions are normal. In fact, it's not unusual to go through the stages of grief, like when someone has died. In fact, when I left the high control religion that I was in, it felt like someone had died because I actually loved the religion that I was in. I believed it. It formed a very part of my identity. And now that was gone, I didn't know who I was. So understand first and foremost that the person that you were or thought you were was shaped and you adapted to survive in your environment. And you can do that again now that you're no longer in there. Now, although the majority of this content is going to be for ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, it does apply also to any former cult member or anyone who's been in an abusive relationship. So for those of you who aren't ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and you are watching this, if I ever mention the name Jehovah, just let that go over your head because that's the name that the God of the Jehovah's Witnesses worship, okay? But still relevant, the content is still relevant to what we're about to talk about, okay? So first, let's understand your old self. Now, the fact that you're here means that you're at a crossroads now. There's your old self that we're leaving behind, and there's the new self that we're going to create and work towards. In fact, I say you're going to create it. The first step is we need to understand the old you, where that came from. If you were in a high control environment, you were shaped by your abuser or the organization. That dictated how you behaved, what you were allowed to do, what friends you were allowed to have, who you could speak to, what you thought about yourself, what you were allowed to be. It dictated your beliefs, your identity, even your self-worth. In the Jehovah's Witnesses, your self-worth was based on how many doors you knocked on or how spiritual you considered to be in the congregation. If you're in a high control relationship, your self-worth is based on whatever your abuser says that particular day. But that identity, that wasn't you. That's like someone taking like a gingerbread man cake cutter and stamping as many impressions as they can so everybody looks the same, behaves the same, and thinks the same. And that is the opposite of authenticity. That wasn't you. Now, if you were born in a high control group, you probably don't even know who you really are. And if that's the case, you're now going to explore over the next couple of days who you really are. And I want to say right now, I need you to understand right now that regardless of what you've been told in the past, you as a human being are absolutely worthy of compassion, attention, love, and time. I want you from now on to start looking at yourself compassionately. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past. If you made mistakes, we all make mistakes. It doesn't matter whether your abuser or the abusive environment still gets at you and tries to make you feel small. You're allowed to make mistakes. Be compassionate to yourself, okay? Now, in all cults and all high control groups, they use fear, obligation, and guilt to motivate their members, to motivate their victim. Now, in the Jehovah's Witnesses, I remember we were motivated by the fear of displeasing Jehovah, the fear of displeasing the elders, the fear of displeasing our parents or our so-called brothers and sisters in the religion. We were obligated to go out door knocking, obligated to preach, obligated to attend meetings, even having to record how many doors we knocked on, how much literature we placed. And guilt, we were made to feel guilty if we didn't meet that standard, if we didn't fill in enough hours on our report slip, if we disagreed with the doctrine. I remember feeling guilty about that, having doubts. So understand that those emotions, fear, obligation, and guilt, are signs that you were in a high control group. So you've left the Jehovah's Witnesses, you've left the high control group, you've left your abuser. What now? Well, you most likely feel a sense of freedom. And that's wonderful, that's a great thing to explore. The danger is, don't automatically rush into becoming the opposite of how you used to behave, because that is the Jehovah's Witness stereotype of what worldly people are like and apostates. So a lot of people go out there and they do things they've always wanted to do. They try things they've always wanted to try, and that's great. In fact, I recommend that people do that. The danger there is you don't have to rebel. You don't have to hate the organization. You don't have to become an activist. You don't have to take up smoking or drugs or become hypersexualized. Unless, of course, you want to. But I would advise not rushing into those things. Take it slowly, okay? In fact, make a list of the things that you've always wanted to do when you were a Jehovah's Witness and go through them. Maybe try them out. And if you are going to try something else, do it slowly and in stages. Don't just rush straight into it, okay? You're free now. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. Because that's the thing about freedom. Freedom isn't having lots of money. Freedom isn't being able to go where you want, when you want, with whoever you want. Those are aspects of freedom. Freedom is having more choices. And now that you're not a Jehovah's Witness, now that you're not in a high control environment, you have more choices. And those choices are what make us feel free. So you get to choose what you want to do, and you get to choose how long you want to do it. And also remember, when you do something, it doesn't mean that you are that thing, okay? If you smoke a cigarette, for example, that doesn't make you a smoker. It makes you someone who smoked a cigarette at that time. If you tell a lie, that doesn't make you a liar. It means you told a lie one time, okay? Because the Jehovah's Witnesses have this attribution bias where someone does something and they are that thing. And it's very reductive and very offensive, in my opinion, because as human beings, we're supposed to experiment and discover who we are. And part of that is collecting experiences. So let's begin creating you. Who do you want to be? Because now you have the ability and the freedom to design and create the person that you want to be. And remember, you don't have to be an ex-Jehovah's Witness. You don't have to be a Jehovah's Witness. You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be anything. In fact, it's best to not define yourself as any one thing, because we are all many things at the same time. And here's the thing about identity. While personality is relatively fixed, identity isn't. Identity changes all the time, and we can change our identities whenever we want to. Your identity isn't inside waiting to be discovered. We don't find ourselves. That's a common misconception that people go off and they go off to try and find themselves, discover who they are. That doesn't exist. We create ourselves. I created myself when I left a cult. You can create yourself. I've worked with thousands of people and helped them create themselves. I don't create them. They create themselves. I ask them questions. We figure out together what their values and beliefs are, what their likes and dislikes, what direction they want to move in, and they create their own sense of identity. And I help them work towards that. So how do we build an identity? Well, first of all, you need to understand what your values and beliefs really are. Now, this can take quite a long time. And you say you're not going to do that in one video. This has to be done by yourself, on your own. Get a notebook or a pad and a pen and write down what your values and beliefs actually are. And I don't mean the things you got from your religion or your ex-religion or from the media. What do you actually believe and value? And then ask yourself, why do you believe those things? And then ask yourself, what if I believe the opposite? What would that mean? How would I behave if I believed this thing? How would I behave if I believed that thing? How would it affect my environment? How would it affect my family, my friends, my workplace? Have a play around with it. And remember, no matter what idea and value and belief you have, it can and most likely will change as you go through life. And that's fine, because our lives, as we say, are created and we refine them as we go on. There's ideas and beliefs I have now which are the exact opposite of what I had 10 years ago after I left the Jehovah's Witnesses. Things like gay rights, or whether it's ever acceptable to go to war, the death penalty, things like this. I mean, I've gone through all of these things in my head. And over the years, my beliefs and ideas about these things have changed and shifted massively. But they're my values and beliefs. It doesn't mean that they're right for everybody. And indeed, they shouldn't be. What's right for me are the things that I've decided. What's right for you are the things that you're going to decide. So we build our identity, and we build it through values, habits, relationships with others, our experiences, our boundaries. We're going to figure out what they are, through our goals, through our actions, and the meanings that we give to these things. And just don't forget, you are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to figure these things out. You are allowed to like things without any guilt. You don't have to tell people everything that you like, everything that you believe. And if you do something that you thought you wouldn't like, and you do it anyway, and it turns out you actually do like it, and other people might not like it and might judge you for it, well, guess what? That's okay. Because now you know that you like it, and you can carry on doing that thing, as long as it doesn't harm anybody. And likewise, there's things that I've tried, which I thought I would like, and I don't like them. And I don't wonder about them anymore. So as you're writing down your values and beliefs, on the next page, think of this. Think of the old you. Which things that you did or believed, which things were genuine? Which things were really from you? And which things were coerced or did you do because you felt you had to? What do you value now? What kind of people do you admire? Write down a list of the top 5 people that you admire. They can be famous people or people that you know personally. And then write down why you admire them. You might find that there's a common thread through all of those people. And they're the aspects that you like. And they're the things that you can attach onto yourself. Maybe you value things like bravery or honesty or compassion or how they treat other people or how they view the world. How do you want others to feel when they're around you? What do you want people to say about you when you're not around? And I don't mean what you want people to think about you, because that's a whole other video. But what do you want people to feel when they're around you? What do you want them to say about you when you're not around? What have you always wanted to explore? Any hobbies or interests out there? And the big one, what does authenticity look like to you? How would you dress? How would you walk? What kind of people would you associate with? What books would you read? What programs would you watch? So here's your challenge for this week. This is where change happens. This is your homework for this week. You see, we can think as much as we like, but it's not until we start acting, until we start behaving, when our brains really get the message and it really solidifies this into our entire brain, body, and self-image. So here's some behavioral activation exercises I want you to do this week. And you will notice results at the end of the week, I promise you. I want you to choose one, 2, or 3 small actions, okay? You could try something new, listen to new music, a band or an artist that you thought you wouldn't like. Go out there and discover some new sounds. Read a new book by a new author. Visit somewhere new. Wear something different. Express an opinion that you have honestly to somebody else. Reconnect with an old interest. Or say no confidently to something that you don't want. Now that leads into boundary settings, which we'll talk about in another session. But yeah, think of that. Because every conscious decision that you make, every choice that you make, as long as it's yours, is another brick in that wall of building your new house, which is your new identity. So to ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, to ex-cult members, and people who've been in high control groups, remember that this is where change happens. This isn't the end. You're not broken. You're at the start of something wonderful. You're at the start of a brand new you. And I envy you, because I remember when I did this years ago, and I had the best years of my life figuring out all this stuff. And I'm so happy and so proud that I get to pass this on to you over the next couple of videos. So my final take-home message is this. You're not broken. You're not an ex-Jehovah's Witness. You haven't failed. You are a human being worthy of compassion and love, and you are consciously building a new, authentic self. And I guarantee you that you're going to love that person, because I will when I meet you. Take care.